Hello and welcome to the Department of Elections third-party voter registration drive training. My name is Taylor Melton. I'm the NVRA and voter registration coordinator for the Virginia Department of Elections. And on behalf of Chris Piper, the Commissioner of the Department of Elections, the 3 members of our State Board of Elections, the 133 local general registrars, their 3 electoral board members each, and the 72 Department of Elections staff, welcome. I mention a lot of people in this greeting, but I want each of you to know just how many professionals are working diligently to ensure that the mission of the Department of Elections is realized. That mission is simple: to promote and support accurate, fair, open, and secure elections for the citizens of the Commonwealth. The work we do is in support of our vision of a highly modern, efficient, and professional electoral process that is trustworthy and accountable at all levels and engages Virginia's diverse citizenry in the most fundamental right in a democratic society, the right to vote. So welcome to our training. It will provide valuable information regarding your responsibilities when conducting a voter registration drive in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So with that said, let's begin. During this training, we will review the following topics: introduction and training requirements, a review of the sworn affidavit that you are required to complete to certify that you have taken this training, the qualifications to register to vote. We'll talk about how you can get your voting rights restored, walk through the application in detail, some important things to remember, some frequently asked questions, and then we will conclude. So why are you here? Well, you or your organization wants to host a voter registration drive in Virginia. Any organization or individual who is requesting 25 or more voter registration applications from us at the Department of Elections or from a local voter registration office is required to register with us at ELECT and complete our designated training. We encourage any group or individual printing their own applications to complete this training as well. At least one agent of your organization must complete the training and certify that the organization will train all members who will be collecting applications. Any other individual requesting more than 25 applications, even if they claim to represent a group which has already received training, must still complete the training prior to receiving those requested applications. The certification that you receive from this training expires each year on June 30th. Each individual or group must retake the training in order to renew your certification. The purpose of this training is to ensure that you and your organization comply with Virginia law and rules regarding voter registration, and that applications you collect are properly filled out for the general registrar to process. This is the sworn affidavit that you are required to complete when requesting your voter registration applications and to confirm that you have taken this training. It stipulates that you will abide by Virginia laws and rules regarding voter registration and specifically indicates that you will provide a completed receipt to all applicants for whom you take an application, return all completed applications no later than 10 days after the applicant signs or by the close of registration for the next election, whichever comes sooner, that you will not mark, add, change, or delete any information on the application, nor will you destroy or dispose of the application in any way, that you will not copy, duplicate, or distribute any Social Security number from the application, that you have completed the training required, and that you understand that criminal penalties may result from noncompliance or from intentionally falsifying or misrepresenting material information on this form. Do note that there is space on this form to request applications be mailed to you, but note that there is a limit of 200 applications per request. This affidavit, since this is the online training video, the affidavit is linked online on our registration drive training page, and that is the page that you had to access this video from. So once you finish watching the video, please make sure that you click on the link to the affidavit and submit it online. That way your name can be added to our certified list of individuals and organizations that is located on that page of our website. And speaking of which, this is that page of our website. You can see here the list of certified persons and organizations near the bottom. Once you complete the affidavit, which is linked directly above that, you can access this list. Your name will be added to the list, and you can use that list to verify that you have done this training and certified if you ever need to. Again, the list is not going to be in an alphabetical order because we do update the list every day, and it is just too many people to alphabetize every day. So the list is not alphabetized, but you can always look for your name by doing the search function, which is on Windows, that is Control F, or Apple, it is Command F, to initiate a search for your name within that document. So, where can voters apply to register to vote? Applications for registration can be completed at any voter registration office, at the DMV, or online. To apply online, the voter must have a DMV ID, which in our case means a driver's license or another form of ID issued by the DMV. If the applicant does not have a DMV ID, they are still able to fill out the application online, but they will need to print, sign, and mail their application to the voter registration office. Now, the reason for this is that when we do the applications online, we do need your signature, and it must be your written signature, how your signature actually looks when you write it out, not just a typed signature like some other types of online or electronic signatures are. So without that DMV ID, we don't have access to the image of your signature. And so that application can't be accepted or it can't be submitted without that signature. When we do have your DMV ID, we can cross-reference, pull up your record with the DMV ID, which has that image of your signature on it, since you have to provide that for your driver's license or any other kind of ID that the DMV provides. So we can pull that image of your signature from your DMV file, input that into the application that you're generating as you apply online, and then send that complete application with the signature to the appropriate local registrar's office. So again, without the DMV ID, we don't have that actual image of the signature, and that's why you can still complete the application online, just that at the end, when it gets to the signature, it's going to prompt you to print it out and then sign by hand, and then either mail it or hand deliver it to the appropriate local registration office in your city or county. So if you get questions about that as you're helping folks register to vote, you can refer back to this. That is the reason why we do need a DMV ID to register fully online. Registration drives can always direct interested individuals to our website for registration. That is elections.virginia.gov. However, we also offer an additional feature that allows third-party organizations to create a custom URL for registration. Now, the way that this works is that if someone goes to our website to register to vote, they'll go to our registration portal, which we call the Citizen Portal, and that's where they can register to vote, update their existing registration, apply for an absentee ballot, all that good stuff. So when you have a custom URL for your organization, you contact me at my email here to request your custom URL. Once we get it created, I'll send you the URL in an email and provide some additional information on how to best utilize it. But once you have that URL, you can go ahead and distribute that out to the folks you're trying to help register. And when they click on your URL, it will take you to the Citizen Portal. So it will be the same experience as someone who didn't go through your specific URL, but instead went straight to our website. The experience will be completely the same. But because they accessed it through your URL, we can detect that and we can track all of the registrations, all of the activity that goes through that specific URL, and we can provide an activity report to you, to your organization, so that you can track, your online registration efforts. So this is really just a way to, you can always direct people just to our website for online registration, but you won't be able to see, the results from that. So this is a way to enable online registration, but allow you to kind of track your efforts and, basically be able to see how successful you've been. So again, if you're interested, do send me an email and I will get you set up. The URL will look like this, what you see on the screen here. You'll see group. That will be the custom name for your third-party registration group, and you'll provide that to me in the email. And then campaign name at the end. This is something that once you have your URL, you can add on to the URL yourself. Whenever you need it, you can leave it off, you can add one, but basically it's just a way to track your efforts on a specific initiative or push. So say, for example, your group is looking to target eligible high schoolers and will be doing voter registration in a local high school. You might take your URL and add, here's my URL / high school votes at the end of it. That would be your campaign name. And by doing that, you will be able to see all of the activity in the report, and it will have that little tag on it for that campaign name. So that's kind of another additional feature, another way you can track the specific efforts of, particular drives or efforts, that kind of thing. So again, that's just something you can do on your own time once you get that URL made. But again, if you want one, just send me an email here and we will get you going. Now, this is the Virginia voter registration application. Page 1 on the left must be completed by the applicant, and page 2 on the right provides important information. You will notice asterisks placed by required fields. Failure to respond to fields marked with an asterisk can result in denial of the application. Pre-population of the application with information that the applicant is required to provide is prohibited by Virginia law unless you are directed to do so by the applicant. Now, before we get into the application in detail, let's review the qualifications to register to vote in Virginia. You must be a citizen of the United States of America. You must be a resident of the Commonwealth of Virginia. You must be 18 years of age on or before the next general election. You must have had your rights restored by the appropriate authority if you have been convicted of a felony. And you must have been restored to capacity if you have been adjudicated mentally incapacitated by a judge. Now, we'll talk a little more about getting your rights restored from a felony conviction in just a moment. But while we're on this page, a quick note about the age requirement. So you see that you must be 18 years of age by the next general election. So a 17-year-old who will turn 18 on or before the next general election is also eligible to register to vote as a 17-year-old. The idea being that they will turn 18 by election day, so they will be eligible to vote. So if you are helping folks register to vote, do make sure that they know that if they are will be turning 18 by the next general election. Additionally, those 17-year-olds, they are able to vote in any intervening primary or special election between the time they register and the time that they turn 18, before the next general election. The idea there is that if they will be able to vote in the general election, they should also be able to vote in the special or the primary elections that will be determining the candidates who will be in the general election and any special elections as well. So that's just a quick thing to note 17-year-olds who will be 18 on or before the next general election are eligible to vote. So if an individual meets all of these qualifications, they are eligible to register to vote in Virginia. Now, as for restoration of rights, anyone convicted of a felony in Virginia automatically loses their civil rights, and that is the right to vote, to serve on a jury, to run for office, become a notary public, and carry a firearm. The Constitution of Virginia gives the governor the sole discretion to restore civil rights, though this does not include firearm rights. Those have to be restored separately by a court. The governor will consider restoration of rights for individuals who have completed all terms of incarceration, even if they remain on community supervision. And that last part is new this year. The governor did make a change to the restoration where previously you had to have finished all of your terms of supervision. Now, as long as you have finished your terms of incarceration, you are eligible to get your rights restored. And as of March 16th, 2021, that is when we got our last update, the governor had restored the civil rights of over 69,000 Virginians. So how can you apply to get your rights restored? It's very simple. You can do it online at the Secretary of the Commonwealth's office. That is restore.virginia.gov. The governor has the authority to restore civil rights, but it's the Secretary of the Commonwealth, one of his cabinet secretaries, that actually processes the applications. So you can go to their website. They have a space at the bottom of their page. You'll see that little screenshot on this slide where you can check to see whether your rights have already been restored, and if not, go ahead and apply to have them restored online. You can also print out an application and mail it to the Secretary's office at the address you see here, or give them a call or email and coordinate your application that way. But once you apply, the typical turnaround time, I believe, at this point is between 1 to 2 months, just due to the volume that they get. So once you apply to have your rights restored, once they've been confirmed, restored, the governor's office will send you a little packet with some information that will be, that you'll need to know as having your rights restored. And you will also receive in that packet a voter registration application. So now we will talk about the application in detail. We'll walk through it piece by piece. So looking at the first section, we start with the citizenship. Are you or are you not a citizen? Yes or no. We'll ask for the full social security number. That is required. The exception would be if you were never issued a social security number. And in that case, the applicant would want to check the box under the number line that indicates that. Then we ask for the date of birth, and we do need the day and month as well, in addition to the year. That's because, as we just discussed, if you're 17 but you'll be 18 on or before Election Day, you can register to vote as a 17-year-old. So this is critical to help us know when exactly you will be, turning 18, so that we can make sure that you can get registered to vote if you're eligible. And then finally on line 1 is gender. Now, gender's a little different. You'll notice that all of the fields in line 1 have asterisks next to them, which we previously said failure to respond to those fields could result in denial of the application. Not so for gender. Gender, we are required by law to ask for it on the application. However, by regulation, it is actually considered to be non-material in terms of determining whether that application is complete or not. So in other words, we have to ask for it, but we don't actually need it. So if you're helping a client, if you're helping someone register to vote and complete their application, they don't want to put down their gender for whatever reason, perfectly fine. They can move right along and it will not impact whether their application is approved or denied. Next, we need the applicant's full name. If they don't have a middle name, they would check the box for none. They would circle their suffix if they have one. Provide their residence address. Now, this must be the actual residence address, the street address. It cannot be another address or a PO box. It has to be where the applicant actually lives. This is because we use this to place that voter in the proper precinct, in the right polling place, in the proper, districts for House and, House, State House, and House of Representatives and Congress. So we need to know where you actually live. So again, make sure that the applicant is putting their actual residence address and that it is a street address. Then finally, in section 2, we ask for the email and phone number. Excuse me. You'll notice that these don't have asterisks. These are not required, but we do strongly encourage every applicant to provide at least one or the other so that we have an easy way to get in touch with them if we need to. Otherwise, we have to send them a letter in the mail, and a lot of times we don't hear back when we do that. So it's just much easier. For example, say there's something a little questionable on the application, and the registrar would like to, contact the applicant so they can, iron out that discrepancy and continue on processing it. If they have the phone or email, they can just get in touch right away. Otherwise, they'd have to send that letter in the mail, and they might not hear back. And if they don't hear back, it could result in a denial of the application. So, obviously we don't want that. We don't want the voter to have to start from scratch over something that they, could have been fixed over a simple conversation. So again, if they don't want to provide their phone or email, that is perfectly fine. But we do recommend that they do so just so that we can get in touch with them if we need to. And then on section 3, we ask whether the applicant has been convicted of a felony or judged mentally incapacitated and disqualified to vote. If they answer yes, they will need to say whether or not their right to vote has been restored. Section 4. Now, this is a big one. This is where the applicant can provide an alternate mailing address if they meet certain criteria. And this criteria is laid out in the checkboxes that you see on the screen. So if an applicant is an active duty uniformed service member, one of their spouses or dependents, their spouse or dependent, or an overseas citizen, they can provide an alternate mailing address here. Now, there are certain restrictions on the type of mailing address that these folks can provide. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But just know for the folks in the first checkbox, those service members, etc., there are the restrictions do not apply. So they can provide any type of mailing address they want. And that is essentially to allow them to provide a military address, an overseas address, that sort of thing. So if they meet the criteria, they would check the appropriate box and provide their alternate address in the space below. Looking at that second checkbox, applicants whose residence address is not serviced by the USPS or those that are homeless are eligible to provide this alternate mailing address as well. Now, there are, the restrictions on the type of address they can provide do apply here. And this address must be a USPS or commercial PO box address located in the Commonwealth of Virginia and preferably in the city or county in which they reside. There are some exceptions, particularly for those who are experiencing homelessness. A person experiencing homelessness must provide the street address, the closest for their residence address. They must provide the closest address to where they stay at night, whether that be a shelter or somewhere else. It would have to be a street address for the residence address, but there are more exceptions for them, the type of mailing address they can provide. It should be somewhere where they can receive election mail, but that can get a little tricky if you're trying to help someone who's homeless register to vote. So if you have difficulties doing so, you're not exactly sure what to tell them for this, the best place to go for assistance would be the local general registrar's office for your city or county, because they likely have had experience helping homeless folks register to vote in the past. Um, they would have, some idea of what kind of address to provide you. And they also would likely have a good sense of the local area. And so they would, be able to give you some advice. So again, if you're having difficulty with assisting someone who is homeless registered to vote, particularly in this area, contact your local registrar for assistance. And then finally on this page, the third checkbox and all of the ones below it, these are what we call protected voters. So if you meet some of the criteria listed here, you would be considered a protected voter, and you can provide your alternate mailing address here. Some of the criteria, I mean, you can read it on the page, but if you've been granted a protective order, you're in fear for your safety from threats or stalking, you've been approved to be a foster parent, all of this grants you protective voter status. You can check the box that's appropriate and provide your alternate mailing address in the space below. Again, the restrictions on the type of address apply here as well. It must be a USPS or commercial PO box address located in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and preferably in the city or county in which the applicant resides. Next, we ask if the applicant is registered to vote in another state. If so, which one? This helps us contact that other state and let them know that their voter is now with us, so they can cancel their prior registration and make sure we don't double up on registrations between states. And then section 6 asks whether the applicant is interested in being an officer of election, aka a poll worker on election day. This is optional, though we are always looking for help. So if someone is interested in doing that, if they check that box, once their application gets processed by the registrar's office, that office will reach out to the voter with more information about what they need to do to get involved in all that. Then we have the signature. We do need the signature and date. The exception would be if the applicant is unable to sign due to a disability. The individual who is assisting them complete the application would want to check the box below the signature line that indicates that, and then they would not have to actually sign. And finally, at the bottom of the application is the Virginia voter registration application receipt. This should be completed by the individual or group who is receiving the application from the applicant. If the applicant chooses to take the application and turn it in themselves, no receipt is required. The third-party organization's name and phone number should be clearly entered on the receipt in the little rectangular box that you see on the screen. This is the official record for the applicant that they have submitted a voter registration application and can be used to confirm submission should something happen to that original application. The receipt has no bearing on the applicant's ability to vote should their name not appear on the poll book on election day. Now, one other thing to mention, the receipt, that little rectangular section you see here, has been sized to fit an Avery label. So if you would rather not have to handwrite your contact information for every application, that can be tiresome. You can get yourself a stack of Avery labels, print out your information on them and just peel them off and stick it on and do it that way. Much easier and much quicker. But that's just that's just some tips. But that is the entire application. So now we will look at a few important things to remember as you're going about your registration business. Do not attempt to register voters who are already registered or who you know are not eligible to be registered to vote. Voters can check their registration status at any time by visiting vote.virginia.gov or elections.virginia.gov. They will both take you to the right place. The law requires that you provide a receipt to each individual who completes an application. As we just discussed, the receipt is located on the back of the application. Applications must be delivered to us at ELECT at the State Department or to the local voter registration office within 10 days or by 5 p.m. on the last day of registration prior to the next election, whichever comes first. Excuse me. And providing an alphabetical listing of applicants when you provide them to the local office will help protect you and your applicants. Continuing, it is illegal to complete the application on the applicant's behalf unless it is done at the direction of the applicant. Do not solicit multiple applications from one person. Do not destroy, make changes to, or alter in any way completed applications. Copying even part of the Social Security number of any person is illegal, so make sure you don't do that. And finally, do not discriminate. All individuals who request a voter registration application should be given one. Now we'll go over a couple FAQs. Are applicants permitted to include a future address as their mailing or residence address? No. Applicants must provide the address where they currently reside. A registered voter must update their registration information if they move to a different address in the future. So say, for example, someone tells you, well, I'm going to be moving to a new house in a week. Can I register with that address? The answer would be no. They would need to either wait to register to vote until they've moved into their new address, and then they can vote, and then they can register to vote using that address, or they would need to register at their current address, and then once they move into the new address, they could update their voter registration to fit that new address. You have to register to vote with the information that is current. That's kind of just a hard stop law, so they have to be the current address. And it has to be where they actually live too. You can't, for example, you can't provide a work address. You can't provide, like your beach house or something like that. It has to be your actual residence address where you live and where you stay at night. Excuse me. Can a person experiencing homelessness apply to register to vote? They sure can. A homeless person can register to vote if they intend to remain in a locality indefinitely and provide some residence address indicating the primary place where they stay at night. A mailing address is required for those folks. And again, as we discussed earlier, it can get a little complicated trying to determine the proper address to provide for that. So if you have questions, do contact the local voter registration office in your locality for assistance. Where do I deliver the completed applications? Completed applications can be delivered to any voter registration office or to us at the state. However, delivery to the office in which that applicant resides will reduce the processing time. This is because the local office for the city or county where the applicant resides is the place or are the people who are required to process the application. So if you send it to us at the state or you send it to another local office, that's fine, and we'll get it to the right place, but we will have to put it back into the mail to the appropriate office. So that will just increase the time it takes for the applicant to hear back, time it takes for it to be processed. So if you can get it to the proper local office right from the jump, that is the way to go. And how long do I have to deliver the applications? Applications should be delivered within 10 days of acceptance or by the registration deadline for the next election, whichever comes first. How will individuals know if their registration was accepted? The local registrar will determine registration eligibility. A voter registration notice advising the applicant of acceptance of their application, of their registration, I should say, will be mailed to the registrant. And a denial notice will be mailed if they are determined to be ineligible. And any applicant who does not receive either a voter registration confirmation or denial notice within 14 days should contact their local registration office for more information. Can the national or federal voter registration application be used in Virginia? Yes, it can. Federal law allows for the use of the national voter registration application form. However, we do prefer that you use the state form. This is because the state form asks for everything that is required in Virginia and nothing else. It's basically been, you know, made so it's as efficient as possible while asking for all of the required information. The national form is a bit longer, and so it's just a little more arduous to complete and a little more difficult for us to process. Though we will, of course, process it. But another thing to note, the national form, I do not believe asks whether the applicant has been convicted of a felony and judged or been judged mentally incapacitated and disqualified to vote. That is something that we do need to know in Virginia, because that is a qualification to register to vote in Virginia, is having your rights restored if you have had your rights taken away. So again, you can use the federal form, but we do prefer you use the Virginia form if at all possible. And finally, may I obtain a list of active registered voters in Virginia? Yes, you can. The Code of Virginia permits us to furnish at a reasonable price lists of registered voters to certain groups and individuals, including nonprofit organizations that promote voter participation and registration. To obtain one of these lists, you simply have to call us at our main line, which is 804-864-8901. That's available on our website as well. Once you give us a call, we'll put you in touch with the right person. We'll work with you to determine what exact information you need, because we do offer a bunch of different types of voter lists. And then we will coordinate the pricing for you as well based on what you're looking for. So again, if you're looking for one of those lists, just give us a call and we will get you going. And with that, that wraps up today's training, our virtual online training. Do make sure that you complete the third-party sworn affidavit to certify that you've taken this training. That is available on our website on the Registration Drive training page, which is linked here. If you are watching this video, you have accessed that page because it's linked there. So just make sure to go back in there and complete that affidavit online to make sure that you certify for taking this. Once you do so, your name will be added to that third-party certified list on that website, which you can also refer to as verification that you've taken this training. But if you have any questions, do feel free to reach out to me. Here's my contact information. I will be happy to answer any questions you have, address any concerns, etc. So with all that said, thank you for watching this video. Thank you for getting trained on how to properly conduct voter registration in Virginia. And thank you for doing the work to get out there and help people get registered to vote. That is a very important thing that you're doing. So we at the department are very grateful for your services. So with that, Thank you, and have a nice day.